Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Fox Nation's post-debate coverage. It's the race for 2020. I'm your host, David Webb. I think you know that by now. And the final Democratic debate before the Iowa caucus just wrapped up moments ago. That was at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. Of course, the battle underway, and what began as the largest and most diverse Democratic presidential field in history is now down to a dozen, but only a half of them made the stage for tonight's debate. So you can imagine it was a lot of Biden and Bernie and Warren. Buttigieg is still fighting to stay in. And the main question is, did any candidate move the needle enough to sway Iowa voters? By the way, note there, what about Klobuchar? What about Tom Steyer and his tie? Here are some of tonight's highlights. Let's watch this.
The planet that we're going to be leaving our kids and our children and our grandchildren will be increasingly unlivable.
We're going to get to climate change, but I'd like to stay on trade. Senator Warren.
Well, they are the same in this issue.
Why should voters believe you have the experience or judgment to serve as commander-in-chief?
I worked internationally around the world for decades. I would not meet with the, quote, supreme leader who said, Joe Biden is a rabid dog. He should be beaten to death with a stick. I count that.
Other than that, you like him.
Other than that, I like him.
I defeated an incumbent Republican running for Congress.
When?
1990.
Wasn't it 30 years ago?
I beat an incumbent Republican congressman.
And I said I was the only one who's beaten an incumbent Republican in 30 years.
Well, 30 years ago was 1990, as a matter of fact.
I remember when they came around in the 90s, selling trade deals, telling us, don't worry about your slice of the pie. The pie will get so much bigger that everyone will be better off. And that promise was broken.
Kansas has a woman governor right now, and she beat Chris Kobach. And her name is, I'm very proud to know her, and her name is Governor Kelly. Thank you.
And by the way, one of the most awkward moments, and where a lot of numbers were mentioned, was the argument between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren talking about who beat who and how many decades or years were involved. Tonight, I'm joined by my all-star panel to break down all the top moments from the 7th showdown, with 6 on the stage. First up, Brad Blakeman, former deputy assistant to George W. Bush, Erin Elmore, a Republican strategist and former RNC deputy press secretary, and Johnny Joey Jones, Fox News contributor, retired Marine Bomb Corps technician. Great to see you all here. This was clearly less of a field for the Democrats. So my first question is, was there more in this debate? And I'm going to go out to the far end of the table here, Johnny. What did you hear?
We heard a lot of nothing, didn't we? I mean, we heard a lot of debating over, was 30 years ago, or was it 30 years ago? We heard a lot of Joe Biden not losing, so de facto winning. And we heard a lot of, we wish Andrew Yang were there, we wish Tulsi Gabbard were there, we wish there was some diversity, not in color or creed, but thought and platform. And that's where the real truth is for the Democratic Party. Are they playing it safe, and are they doing that because they think that's the only chance they have?
All right, Erin, hold that thought, because I got a guy here who's been around a lot of campaigns, and you were there at the RNC as well. But Brad, to what Joey just said, when you're talking about playing it safe, is it good political strategy to play it safe right now? We didn't hear a lot of numbers at times.
Look, nobody had a breakout moment. There isn't one moment that in the clips that you played where you say, aha, somebody had a breakout moment. Somebody has said something or did something that breaks them out of the pack. The fact is, if we look at the polls, and by the way, the polls in a caucus state are totally unreliable, but all the polls that have been released have one thing in common. The spread is very close, which means that if the spread is very close and you have a caucus just weeks away, you need a breakout moment. The fact is, the status quo doesn't help any of these guys make their mark in the first what some people say is the most important for a breakout moment in Iowa to have to New Hampshire and Nevada, and as you move to Super Tuesday.
Right, and by the way, we're going to get to Super Tuesday later on. All right, as the person who's had to craft and deliver the message for a political party, we started out with Tom Perez, by the way, a little pre-debate.
Oh, yeah.
We had basically an infomercial with Tom Perez up there. And look, they're allowed to do that. I did check with a former FEC commissioner, so no, thing of value given there. But as someone who's had to craft the message, what do you do if you're the Democrat Party now?
You're going to have to really shuffle because there's not a lot they can talk about or point to. And I thought it was really surprising the things they didn't talk about today. Soleimani, where was that? No one heard a word about it. Impeachment, there was relatively nothing about it.
I think it got 4 minutes, you said, Brian.
4 minutes, and that was it. So what were they talking about? It was a whole lot of nothing, no follow-up questions, no deep dives. There was really nothing that came out of it. You talk about pharmaceutical companies, they were talking a little bit about that. This whole thing was like Ambien. We're not even going to need pharmaceuticals. It was so boring.
I think we know where you stand. All right. Foreign policy was first up, but again, missing Soleimani. A lot of talk about the Middle East. Let's play this sound. This is praise for the Iran deal, which was one of the hallmarks for Joe Biden coming out of the Obama administration.
The nuclear deal with Iran was worked on with a number of our allies. We have got to undo what Trump did, bring that coalition together.
I was part of that deal to get the nuclear agreement with Iran, bringing together the rest of the world, including some of the folks who aren't friendly to us, and it was working.
It's such an important part of keeping America safe. But unfortunately, President Trump has made it much harder for the next president to achieve that goal. By gutting the Iran nuclear deal.
Because of the actions of Donald Trump, we are in a situation where they are now Iran is starting to enrich uranium again in violation of the original agreement.
All right, Joey, I'm going to toss that one to you. I mean, we heard a lot of back and forth, and I know you have some issues with comments made about Afghanistan and Senator Warren, but right there on the Iran deal and on a policy approach, what did you hear? Did you hear any substance that says, I've been there, I know how this needle should be moved?
No, and that's Joe Biden's biggest problem is President Trump won campaigning against pretty much everything that Joe Biden would have done, even his own president wouldn't listen to when it comes to foreign policy. Quick strikes, take out the enemy, come home and regroup. That's President Trump's campaign. Now, I'm not saying he's adhered to it. I have my own objections to some of it, but that's President Trump's campaign, and that's what the American people wanted, and all along the way, Joe Biden's been against it. Even tonight, he talked about it. But there was one comment made, and I don't remember, you pointed it out, I don't remember who made it, but it really falls into this issue of, they led, it might have been Steyer, I can't remember, led with Iran is really hurting economically now. They just forgot to end it with, because of President Trump.
Right.
And that's where we are with Iran. The success that we're going to have with Iran will be because President Trump did kick it up a notch, did call bluff, and did move the ball forward. It's easy enough to kick the can down the road for the next president, but it's very difficult to have the political collateral that President Trump has to do something that is in the media or seemingly unpopular, but yields results in the foreign policy or defense arena.
And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't the Iran nuclear deal still help them get nuclear weapons, and it funded terrorism? So why are they acting like what President Trump has done is so terrible and bad? I just don't understand. I guess they want to undo his legacy in every possible way, and anything that he says is good, they have to say is bad.
Well, I mean, look,
Quite simply.
Let's go to Joe Biden, who, by the way, for how many years? 36 years in the Senate, 8 years as vice president, has been wrong and against, let's call it basically most of our foreign policy decisions from Reagan on. I'm going to share a little anecdote with you. And I think this is a pretty good source when the president's son, President Reagan's son, Michael, shares this with me. That at one point, Joe Biden sat in a room in a closed-door meeting with his father and told him that if he was going to do something, covert or otherwise, an operation that Biden didn't agree with, that he'd leak it to the press.
Wow.
So that could explain it. Now, anyone can challenge that, but I dare you to challenge Michael Reagan on what his father told him, that he called me and said last week, I need to remind you of this,
Wow.
that Biden did this. So it's understandable why President Trump doesn't trust that some may leak in Washington, and I don't care who you are, Washington leaks like a sieve.
Well, look, when the Democrats are staging a coup against you, it's hardly in his interest to share information when they will tell you, quite matter-of-factly, their job is to remove him.
And as long as he stays within the boundaries of the Constitution doesn't violate any of the article's powers as president and his responsibility, that's fine.
Right.
You're not required to share. Here's Joe Biden on the authorization for the use of military force. An important part of this debate probably throughout the year. Let's play this.
The Obama-Biden administration did not ask Congress for permission multiple times when it took military action. So would the Biden doctrine be different?
No, there was the authorization for the use of military force that was passed by the United States Congress, House and Senate, and signed by the president. That was the authority. It does not give authority to go into Iran. It gave authority to deal with these other issues.
Well, Erin, doesn't sound like much of an answer to me, but let me add this. Nancy Pelosi, we now have the video saying that President Obama didn't need this to go to Libya and conduct operations.
Do the Democrats realize that they've been on camera and on tape since the 80s?
Since it's been invented.
Because we have seen now time and time and time again where they have contradicted themselves when it's convenient. You see Biden, let's go back to the Clarence Thomas situation with the Supreme Court. The things he said and did then were flip-flop when it comes to the Republicans. So this is just part and parcel for Democrats at this point. I think whenever it's convenient for them, they say yes. When it's not, they say no. Part and parcel.
You know, I remember a time when President Obama entered into Pakistan, a sovereign country, to take out Osama bin Laden. He didn't advise Congress. He had an opportunity to take out the #1 terrorist. My nephew was killed in 9/11 as a first responder, and when he did it, and he quote unquote invaded Pakistan, didn't tell the Pakistanis, took out our enemy. I, as a Republican, as an American, stood with our president. Now, I fought like hell against him and a lot of his policies, but when a president does something right and does it for the right reasons, we should be rallying around that president. You don't see any of the Democrats rallying around Donald Trump when Donald Trump did the right thing for the right reasons. He's made the world a lot safer, including America.
We'll take the time to get the story right. I mean, that soundbite is it didn't give him permission to go to Iran, but it gave us permission to take care of these other things. We killed Iran's military leader who orchestrates these other things in the country that these other things are happening
At the
in.
scene of the crime.
So can you not just at least, if you want to run for president and have been vice president, take 5 seconds to get your own story straight? I mean, for the guy that fought these two wars, that's not too much to ask, is it?
Well, let's go to Elizabeth Warren, and I know you have some issues with some of the things she said, talking about Afghanistan, talking about the surge. I'll hand it right to you, Joey.
Yeah, so if you listen to the first part of the debate, which I mean probably most people only listen to the first part of the debate, that's why they bumped impeachment to the end, here's what she said. She said that effectively what she said was that troops in Afghanistan do not make our country safer. That was Elizabeth Warren's, that was the point of her statement. What I'll argue is that troops in Afghanistan have absolutely made our country safer. It's the political motives of the people in charge through multiple administrations that take those wins that we fight for and win in blood and squander them over the next election. And that's what I take issue with any president. And I'll take issue with President Trump if I feel like it's happening with him. And so that's what I am beating the war drum for is, listen, as Americans, we have to be the ones that are responsible. Politicians can't call each other to task. They're throwing each other under the bus, and they're willing to let us die to do it. And when Elizabeth Warren says something like that, she really dishonors the sacrifice of people like myself and those that served and honor and sacrificed much more.
And by the way, just before you jump in here, Erin, we've got something that goes to that and much more with Biden, Klobuchar and Warren. Let's play this on the war and the troops.
I know what it's like to send a son or daughter, like our colleague has gone to war in Afghanistan, my son for a year in Iraq. And that's why I do it very, very reluctantly. That's why I led the effort, as you know, Wolf, against surging tens of thousands of troops into Afghanistan.
In Syria, I would not have removed the 150 troops from the border with Turkey. I think that was a mistake. I think it made our allies and many others much more vulnerable to ISIS.
We should stop asking our military to solve problems that cannot be solved militarily. Our keeping combat troops there is not helping. They are not helping create more safety for the United States or the region.
Erin?
I was actually going to point to that statement. We were talking about this off camera. So there's combat troops, and now there's a diversification between the kind of troops that we have.
Elite combat versus the general combat troops.
I wasn't in a war, and you were in several, and you're a war hero, and I always tell you that. Explain to me the strategy here.
I think what they're trying to say, and Joe Biden just is not the right messenger for it, like anything they're trying to say. What he's trying to say is there's a difference between a contingent, which is what the establishment in Washington would lobby for regardless of party, and active combat, in other words, being engaged in combat. And so he just did a terrible job at explaining it. Right now, the common idea, and I think it's what a lot of people are lobbying Trump for, and I could see an effective strategy here, would be to have specific strategic surgical units in Afghanistan to go and take out people like Soleimani. The problem is you have to have a support base for people like that to operate, and that's when you get into this tit for tat. Is it 2,300 troops or is it 6,200 troops? And I would say let the Pentagon decide that. We as a people and Congress as a leader or leadership, even the White House has to decide, do we put people there and for this purpose, and can we do it? Let the Pentagon decide how many people that is or what kind they are.
You know, Brad, it's easy to say things when you're on the campaign trail, what you would do as president, what action you would take. In the campaign, it's easy to say. When you get in there, it's a new dynamic. You learn things you didn't know. You have access to intelligence, and you also have that, thing called the Constitution and the laws of the United States to deal with and our allies. You saw this in the Bush years, the evolution through the years to a new presidency. Our foreign policy doctrine and what you saw from the Democrats, is it going backwards? And where is it either in alignment or contrary to the president now?
No, it's in full retreat. If you listen to Democrats, apology and appeasement doesn't work as a policy, and militarily, leaving with no strategy is not wise. And Donald Trump sees the world as it is, not the world he wishes it to be. Yeah. Democrats see the world as they wished it to be. If we just did this, everything we've got. No, that's not the way it works. And Donald Trump understands that when you go into areas, America's no longer going to be the first. Now, Donald Trump says, it's your neighborhood. I want to see you stand up more. He tells NATO, hey, by the way, we're there for you, but you've got to pay more. You've got to do more. I like that strategy. Democrats should like that strategy.
They should.
But they don't. Why? Because Donald Trump came up with it.
Right.
And the fact is, the world is a lot safer today in taking it to China, and taking it to Europe, and taking it to our adversaries, putting fear in our enemies. That is exactly the right strategy to take. And if Democrats get in, back goes the clock.
All right, I want to move on to the next thing, but I'll go around the table on this quick question. The principle of deterrence. 1, 2, 3 quick answers. Has Donald Trump reintroduced the principle of deterrence, which is a part of peace through strength? Joey.
In some ways, yes. I think it's still yet to be determined. I think we have a lot of unanswered questions, but he's moving forward towards answering them, and I appreciate that.
Erin.
I'm in total agreement with Joey on that. I have nothing more to say.
Look, peace through strength. And if you hit us with a stick, we'll shoot you with a gun. Yeah. And that's the only thing enemies understand.
All right, now the Washington Post ran a story earlier in the week about the lack of diversity in the field, the lack of color in the Democrat presidential field, but also there's a gender issue. Here's Sanders versus Warren. Well, just watch for yourself.
Anybody knows me knows that it's incomprehensible that I would think that a woman could not be president of the United States. Go to YouTube today. There's a video of me 30 years ago talking about how a woman could become president of the United States.
Senator Warren, what did you think when Senator Sanders told you a woman could not win the election?
I think the best way to talk about who can win is by looking at people's winning record. So, can a woman beat Donald Trump? Look at the men on this stage. Collectively, they have lost 10 elections. The only people on this stage who have won every single election that they've been in are the women, Amy and me.
Wow. I mean, a little bit of an awkward moment. By the way, right after Sanders' answer, she did also say, I disagree. So now we really don't know, did he say it or not? All right, I'm going to take the easy one, guys, and toss this to the woman here.
I think Sanders handled the question really well because this was all over the media. It looked like it was going to be a big coup tonight. It was sort of that moment that everyone wanted to watch for the fight. And he just said, look, a part we didn't show, he said, look, Hillary Clinton won the Electoral College.
No, he said she won the popular.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Popular,
yes.
Please,
sorry.
If you say that, Hillary will be back.
Sorry.
Oh, no, see, somebody
I
said
misspoke. I got so verklempt and bored from the last 2 hours. Yes, Hillary won the popular vote. And that his point was, he's like, of course a woman can be president. So I do think that he handled that in the most amicable way possible. He checked that box. It didn't become World War III. And then she said, I disagree, and made her cute little point about the women on stage were the only ones that had won elections. So I think it was asked and answered, as we say in the law.
All right, so Brad, first to you on this. These two are competing pretty much for the same group of people. At some point, they have to take each other on. Did you see them taking each other on tonight enough?
No, I think Warren offered him the peace pipe, and Bernie sucked it up. I mean, the fact is that you had a legitimate calling out of a person who said something that is absolutely unimaginable. And either he said it or he didn't. But I'll tell you what, Bernie's a lot more credible than the accusations by Warren. I mean, Warren has made so many misstatements and so many lies about herself personally. She's absolutely incredible, so I think that's why she gave up.
Was your peace pipe comment paying homage to her Native American?
I'll let you decide.
It was 1/10/24 of a comment, Joey.
You know, the problem with Elizabeth Warren is she couldn't borrow a personality if it were for rent. I mean, she really just, and I'm not just trying to beat up on her. She was a teacher, and there's a certain kind of you know, like all-encompassing personality involved there. But the problem is credibility is an issue, and if you don't have credibility, you damn sure better have likability. And she doesn't have that either. And so where do you go from there? And if you're going to sit there and adhere yourself to someone's platform they've championed for 30 years, I guess, they argued over if it's 30 years or 30 years in one day, then you need to be able to attack that person and win it. And if you can't do it because you don't have credibility and likability, where do you go from there? And that's the question with Elizabeth Warren.
By the way, that was a good point on term limits. When they were having that little spout, I was saying
That's
to
right,
myself,
Joe. You picked up on that too, Joey.
This is something that you could really make hay out of.
Absolutely.
It's true.
All right, now it took them a while to get to, well, there's that impeachment, clear and present danger thing. Right. We'll probably spend more time on this panel than they did on it. But we got to get to free stuff, guys, because they're giving away a lot of free stuff. We heard a lot of numbers in the 30-year debate. We didn't hear a lot in the debate over what was going to pay for water, how you're going to pay for it, or who's going to pay for it. So let's go to some free stuff. Here we have Sanders dodging the overall costs question. So let's go to this.
Senator Sanders, you've consistently refused to say exactly how much your Medicare for All plan is going to cost. Don't voters deserve to see the price tag before you send them a bill that could cost tens of trillions of dollars?
Well, what I will tell you is Medicare for All, which will guarantee comprehensive health care to every man, woman, and child, will cost substantially less than the status quo.
Senator Sanders, your campaign proposals would double federal spending over the next decade, an unprecedented level of spending not seen since World War II. How would you keep your plans from bankrupting the country?
Now, our plan wouldn't bankrupt the country, and in fact, it would much improve the well-being of working-class families and the middle class.
My pick for the piece that's going to pick up a lot tomorrow with Sanders is this next sound, but it goes with this, and then we can get into the discussion. Here's Bernie on who will be taxed.
On the Medicare for All, one of the provisions we have to pay for it is a 4% tax on income, exempting the first $29,000. So the average family in America that today makes $60,000 would pay $1,200 a year, compared to that family paying $12,000 a year.
All right, so Bernie is he saying essentially that your first $29,000 and above that, all Americans are on the tax table?
Look, populism versus practicality. I mean, Bernie thinks that everything can be free and there's always somebody to tax, and it's better for the government to do things than for the public to do things for themselves, and it doesn't work. It's never worked. And $29,000?
But that didn't sound free.
$60,000?
So once you make $60,000, they're taking $1,200 from you. Am I correct?
That is
So it's
huge.
only free if you make less than $29,000 a year.
Joey?
Well, the problem with Bernie is he's moved the goalposts on us a little bit. Usually the argument is over how you're going to pay for it. He jumped that shark big time and said, I'm not even going to tell you what we're paying for or what it costs. And so he's kind of shifted the argument over to, and what his principal belief is it doesn't matter how much it costs because it's morally correct. And somehow it's just the prosperity of this country is so immoral that we have to kind of penalize it in a way. And so that resonates. And the way he gets so passionate about it, it resonates with the kids. It does. Unfortunately, though, if you're under 30 and you're a conservative, you're heartless. But if you're over 30 and you're liberal, you're broke. And so they'll go there. They'll get there.
Well, I understand why young people are socialist. Like, let's say you're in college, your parents pay for everything, you live in their basement. That is socialism.
Right,
So it makes
it's your little
sense.
family socialism.
Right, so I feel like it's totally sensible for them because that's their life as it is anyway.
All right,
I don't
but
have to do anything and
somebody-
everything's free. I love it.
One of you made the point while we were watching the debate about the kids. They don't vote.
They don't vote.
Who said it?
That's the good
It
news.
was, okay.
It was me because they have the enthusiasm. So Bernie has the enthusiasm. And there's a lot of studies and polls out there that show the enthusiasm doesn't get people to the polls. So the thing about his voting population, the people that he needs to attract, they're people that don't generally vote. So that's the problem, and there's a giant disconnect. So yes, they're enthusiastic and they're thrilled, and they will go out and they will protest, and they will make signs, and they will cry, and they will chain themselves to a bike or a tricycle or a car or a boat, but they might not go and vote. So that's the huge disconnect and the huge problem.
All right, anybody want to see somebody chained to a tricycle to
Or
see
a boat.
how that works
I'd like to,
out?
I'd
They
like to-
did chain
The
themselves to
boat
the
means you
boat.
better be a good swimmer.
Listen, I read a lot of Dr. Seuss, okay? I got a 6-year-old.
I would need a tricycle. I can't do 2 wheels anymore with you. So leave the tricycle
We'll get you a
alone.
mechanical
Yeah.
edition. You'll be all set, Joey. All right, more free stuff, but we got to talk about colleges this time because education, college, and everywhere, it's all going to be free. Let's play this.
Lowliest millionaire that I would tax under this wealth tax would be paying about $19 million in the first year in taxes. If he wants to send his kid to public university, then I'm okay with that.
I actually think that some of our colleagues who want free college for all aren't actually thinking big enough. I think what we have to look at is how we connect our education system with our economy.
When did we disconnect our education system from our economy?
I'll tell you what, in full disclosure, I'm an adjunct at Georgetown University, and the kids that go there get exactly what they're paying for. They get a quality education that will allow them to get employment. The one thing I did not hear tonight, that you would think you'd hear from Democrats, is trade schools. Why aren't we know that there are jobs out there that are not being filled, and a lot of the jobs that are not being filled, although they're open, is the fact that the kids or the population doesn't have the skills for that trade. Why are we sending kids to college who shouldn't be in college? We should be sending kids to, if they have the will and desire, to schools that'll give them the type of job that they need and that they want.
I want to expand that to training and throw this one over to you, Joey, because not just talking about trade schools, but Democrats have typically had a big appeal to unions, blue collar workers. That's technical training. That's, beyond college, maybe some associates. Not that there aren't plenty of union members with masters and some with PhDs, but what about that? To Brad's point, skipping an entire segment.
Well, full disclosure, I'm a Georgetown graduate, and I got a great education from adjunct professors.
Professor, you should feel good
But
about
long before that, I was the son of a brick mason. And so this is not a political speech. My daddy was a coal miner, my mom was a school teacher, but I was the son of a brick mason, and I went to the Marine Corps to get away from hard work. I say that all the time.
How did that work out for you?
And it worked out. If you knew my daddy, it worked out pretty well. But with that being said, it's not just an anecdote or an appeasement of don't forget the trade schools. It's a true need in this country. We have welding companies going out of business because the generation that was skipped means no one's there with the knowledge and experience to teach the new generation that wants to do it. And that's the problem. See, we have a lot of conversations about the education system and how you obtain education. We have very few conversations about how to better educate our youth. And that would include a lot of things in life that get skipped over, not only in K through 12, but also in higher education. And the one concern I have about all of this is I know how these things work. If you provide a free education for all, the next step is you mandate that free education for all so that you ensure it gets paid for and has some sort of tax revenue. And then now we're on the road to socialism because the next thing is standardized testing to tell you which trade you go into.
Right.
Oh, yikes.
All right, so
and what I was going
go
to
ahead.
say was this is just going to create a larger divide between the haves and the have-nots. So if all public education is free, the people that are allegedly the haves are going to send their kids to private school. The private schools are going to get better and more well-funded. The public schools will become less funded and less attended by those with affluence. And then again, we're going to go to that divide. The public schools aren't going to be as good and the private schools are going to be better. It's not going to level the playing field in any way, shape, or form, which is the intended purpose.
All right, there's another question. It's the question not asked, and we went the rounds on this watching the debate. They would ask the first question, but the how never got asked. This was really getting to you a lot during the debate.
No, absolutely. And I don't know. If I were going to go down the road of conspiracy theory, I would say that CNN was trying to tank Bernie tonight. I mean, it really felt that way. But even beyond that, you know, you can tell in asking these questions, they're like, oh, we hit that check in the box, good, let's move on. Not, let's drill this down and get an answer out of someone. And it's incredibly frustrating. I can't speak to their motivations or why, but it's incredibly frustrating when I'm a low-level contributor at Fox and I can see this and there's 3 people to get to ask them questions and they can't follow up. Basic journalism.
And,
All right.
and you would think with
Go
a
ahead,
less
Brad.
amount of people on stage that we would have gotten that.
Exactly.
Because all they were saying was, now we're whittling it down. We have 6 on stage. You would think they would get to the meat. There was never the follow-up. You're absolutely right.
All right, guys, we got to go to the guy in the wings. I call him the Kilroy of the Democratic primary. You know that, who's back here? It's Bloomberg and the Bloomberg effect. He's waiting out the caucuses. He's spent $147 million so far, $10 million for a Super Bowl ad, one 60-minute ad. Some estimates $70 to $80 million by March 3rd for Super Tuesday. So Bloomberg not discussed at all tonight. Is that smart strategy? I mean, he's in it.
Well, it's smart strategy if you're on the stage. But
What about the
guy-
asking the question?
the guy's looking behind the curve. Of course it should be asked because the guy has deep pockets. And Bloomberg said, regardless of how the primaries turn out, I have the money to go the distance, and I'm going to be a player. Now, whether that means that he's going to shake them down at the convention and have a speaking role, is he going to influence the platform, is he going to endorse anybody? We don't know. But one thing I do know is he's got hundreds of millions of dollars to spend.
Yeah.
And some of it may not be very helpful to the very people he's supposedly supporting.
So, Erin, donors come into play. Is this why donors are holding off? Democrats are having trouble.
I mean, donors aren't necessarily the issue here if you think about it. $4.2 million a day he's spending on ads, but for a guy that's worth $50 billion, I guess that's just a drop in the
lunch
bucket.
money, yeah.
That's lunch money. It's nothing. But what
But
he's
no big gulp.
no big gulp. Yeah, we can't have a big gulp, or else we're going to tax the heck out of it. But his play is to wait for Super Tuesday. But what I think about him personally is the flyover states, as the Democrats like to call them, all of us smelly Walmart people, don't really know who he is. You know him when you're in New York or California, one of those liberal elites, but anywhere else, no one knows who he is. He's not that much of a threat anywhere but those 2 states.
But I wonder, Joey, because this is a guy who funded Everytown USA, some say to the tune of $38 million, went and spent $2.5 million in Virginia on these recent elections, and helped heavily turn that state blue. So is Bloomberg quietly running an insurgency?
So this is the problem, right? Where was Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard, right? They weren't there. What they don't have that Bloomberg does have is that commercial on television when everybody's watching. And so when you have a situation where someone who is as a chameleon of a politician as anyone has ever been, and he's trumping, good term to use there, over people that have original ideas. And I won't give Tulsi Gabbard that much credit on original ideas, but Andrew Yang is an original thinker. He has ideas that deserve to be debated, heard, and thought about. But when he can't make the stage or buy the commercial, but Bloomberg can choose not to make the stage and buy the commercial, then we know that our political system, at least our primaries, are not working in our favor. And if I were a Democratic voter, I would be so upset at that debate tonight. Bad questions, all right, no follow-up, a concerted effort, it seemed, against Bernie. Andrew Yang, the most diverse thinker in the field, wasn't there. Tom Steyer was there. And Bloomberg's going to have the commercials during the breaks. And so that is not a fair system. That is not how you can choose a president. And it makes me more proud than ever to look back at 2016 and see how we did it.
All right, so how do you counter this if you're a Republican, establishment looking to defeat the Democrats?
Well, the one thing that Donald Trump has that none of them have is a record, and a record of accomplishment. Look, a lot of them on the stage today were supportive of USMCA. They basically said, well, I'm going to vote for it. Klobuchar, I'm going to vote for it. The only person who said he wasn't going to vote for it who could vote is Bernie. And Bernie won't vote for anything that even has Trump smell or taint to it. But the fact is, the way we win is on a record, something the Democrats don't have. The Democrats will go out and tell you the sky is red. We know it's blue, and they can't defeat that. So I give a lot of credit to Donald Trump by sticking to his record.
All right.
I also think that he's got Trump. The way that he is, and he speaks directly to the American
So you're talking personality, appeal.
Trump, he has it. Our people call it chutzpah. I mean, he has it. He's got the Trump factor.
He certainly has chutzpah.
And everyone that voted for him, oftentimes people that didn't come out and vote before, they said, this person is speaking directly to me with common sense appeal. What we heard tonight, there was nothing common sense about anything that we heard. Even Bernie Sanders' math confused me, and I have 7 years of higher education. I was like, wait, you carry the 1 divided by 5, 60,000?
Maybe you
It
didn't
makes
get
no
the
sense.
Bernie higher education that was paid for by somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. But it didn't make any sense, common sense speaking. Trump goes on Twitter, people like it or hate it. He's talking directly to the American people, and they're buying it and loving it hook, line, and sinker.
The brick mason.
You know, Trump. You talk about Trump's it factor. What it is, and what is so dangerous about it, is who until 2016, and this is not something I advocate for. Actually, I stood up for John McCain, but who would ever think of attacking John McCain in the way Trump did? Now, that's kind of a negative example, but what I mean by that is he knows he can survive it. He's positioned himself in such a way with the media, with the establishment Republicans, and with the Democrats that there's no stone he can't turn for a potential positive outcome that any other politician would say, I can't go there, I won't survive it. He knows he knows that he will. That makes him incredibly dangerous to Democrats. They kept saying he's the most dangerous president in history. You're right. He is the most dangerous president in history to a socialist democratic agenda because he proves it wrong every day.
So maybe he's the Teflon Don.
With a lot of chutzpah. All right, so you said danger. So let's talk about the clear and present danger. The donkey in the room, I guess it would be the elephant. It was the Republican. We'll flip it around. But we've heard the term clear and present danger to our democracy, to our nation, to the world. And the count was less than, 4 minutes? Maybe 4 minutes tonight given to impeachment. So Brad, here we have probably one of the most important things you can do in this country constitutionally. Impeach a president. Democrats have voted to impeach. They had a vote earlier today to transmit the articles, and yet it got less than 4 minutes tonight.
It's outrageous, and it's an indictment on Democrats. The fact is, if he's so dangerous, and you're taking this extraordinary step constitutionally to remove him from office, yet you're in a race where you're having a debate, and it comes in at the end for 4 minutes, it shows how hollow and how outrageous and how empty the Democrats' coup is against this president. And they know that it absolutely stinks, and they don't want to talk about it because it hurts them.
All right, Joey, more time on climate change than on impeachment.
Well, first, it's the Church of Climate Change. You don't get it wrong. So it's a religion.
I will say my prayers. Okay.
But secondly, I think what they've learned is that it's very obvious attacking Donald Trump helps Donald Trump, right? It shows the schism between the Democrats in Congress and those running for president. And really what it shows, more than anything, is that the Democratic voters at home don't want to hear it, and they understand that. They are tired of it. They're beyond it. And so if I'm a Democratic voter, I actually appreciate the fact that that they went to Iran, but they didn't talk about Soleimani. They talked about the impeachment at the end, and it was an afterthought or an asterisk. If I'm a Democratic voter, I appreciate that. But as an American, looking at what Democrats are trying to do with our president and with this very powerful tool of impeachment, is frustrating because if you're going to do it, you got to own it. And you got to answer questions on it, and you have to answer for it. If they want Donald Trump to answer for doing his job the way they don't think he should do it, then you answer to me as an American or a potential voter why you're going to remove him from office for it the way you're trying to do it.
And take away the Americans' right to decide his fate.
Absolutely.
In just months.
Absolutely.
All right, so Erin, not only is the world not ended, we're not in World War III. The economy is doing well. The real economic indicators say that 2020 is going to be what I like to call a potential roaring 2020s.
Yes.
And impeachment's all important, but here comes the caucuses, here comes New Hampshire, here comes the trial.
They don't want to take ownership of this impeachment because they know it's a losing strategy. This is something that the Democrats should not be proud of.
Did Nancy Pelosi lose control of it?
I think she absolutely lost control.
But don't you think she never had control? Don't you think that this entire impeachment process has been reactionary? Don't you think that the squad and those influenced that and put her in that corner?
Absolutely.
I don't think she ever had control, and maybe she's had a fledgling attempt at regaining it.
And this shows why the squad is in control, because there's no long play here. What's the strategy here? So now, first you did the impeachment to no avail because you know in the Senate it's not going to work out. So now you're holding on to the articles because you want a trial. So what do they think is the play here? It's a losing strategy. So no one on that stage, they should avoid the word impeachment like the plague if they can, because there's not a winning strategy.
And the other problem
it doesn't pull well
is the very people who are running who serve in the Senate are now going to be taken off the road at the most crucial time of Iowa and Nevada. And it could run into, quite frankly, Super Tuesday. So is this what you want?
Yeah,
and
congratulations.
And you're basically letting Joe run the tables and Buttigieg, all people who can
Don't forget Bloomberg.
And
Bloomberg.
Bloomberg.
You can't forget Bloomberg in all of this, because if you look at it, to your point, if these senators have to come off the road, they can't have a surrogate on the campaign trail. It doesn't work politically. And if that happens, well, then what happens? Bloomberg, Buttigieg, Biden.
Yep, the 3 Bs.
I mean, yeah, this is not the Better Business Bureau, by the way, not according to the capitalist model. But, you know, Joey, if that happens, what does this look like for the Democrats?
What does it look like for the Democrats right now today? Listen, it is a concern, for sure. I think the Democratic Party is a little bit in the tank for Biden. I really do. I think at this point they see that as their safe horse and their best bet. They're not giving some of the others, and I'll continue to say it. I've said it for, I think, 3 debate recaps now. Some of the others who could be an outsider. What's so funny is if the Republicans had treated our primary in 2016 like the Democrats are treating their primary today, we would not have had a nominee Trump. We would not have won the presidency.
Nope.
And the fact that they can't see past the end of their own nose for that, and they're squashing some of the voices like Yang and Gabbard, what are they trying to accomplish?
So they learned absolutely nothing from 2016, and they're betting on Biden, which is basically the least worst option. That's pretty sad when you have to go with your least worst option.
Money. See, the donors aren't betting on Biden.
No.
And so, you know, who is pulling the strings?
Good question, Erin. RNC, you know, has been raising money hand over fist, so to speak. The Trump campaign, what was the numbers?
The December number was something like 10 million, and then the few days after the impeachment, it was like something like 20 million in 2 days. It was an astronomical, mind-blowing amount.
And the types of donors, you know, the Democrats talk about their donors, they need small donors. Trump's been raising an increased number of small donors. So put all of that into this. How does this go forward?
I mean, well, as said earlier, the impeachment has only been good for Trump. There is nothing about this that has been bad for him in any way, shape, or form. He's still controlling the narrative. He's still controlling the media. Nothing has changed other than the Democrats in red and purple states in the House are in big trouble. In my home state of Pennsylvania, Connor Lamb wouldn't touch the gun issue. I think he was a pro-2A Democrat. Now there's a veteran who's well-published and well-regarded who's going to take that seat.
Sean Parnell.
Yes, thank you very much. Great guy, right?
Great. He's on Fox all the time.
He's going to destroy him. He's going to destroy. So it's only hurting the Democrats in red and purple states. That's where this is going.
And when Democrats try and rig something, it never works
Never.
out well. Whether it was against Hillary, whether now they're trying to rig it for
but who are they going to rig it for this
Biden.
time?
None of them can beat Trump.
But okay, if you rig something, you have a chance of getting it through.
Yeah.
Clearly, they didn't need to rig it for Hillary because Bernie wasn't really a factor.
But that's the problem. Most criminals, when they go into a bank, think they're never going to be caught.
Really?
Absolutely. And they're too wise and they're too calculating for their own good.
Yeah.
The fact is, they will take those steps even though they don't have to.
All right. Social media plays a role in this, I'm sure. We should all check their Twitter feeds on the way home. Just for curiosity. Greg Gutfeld, I know you guys are shocked we would actually reference he of the 5 on here, but this is what he had to say. Our very own Gutfeld, in his own way, Tom Steyer is the guy on the subway who stares at you and has no idea why you're moving to another car. I think I even used the Greg Gutfeld voice on that in my own gravelly way, Joey.
You know, one thing Tom Steyer does, and I want to say it was Kim Strassel that pointed out to me, he looks right at the camera. And I think that can be very effective if you have a personality to back it up and anything that can be inspiring.
Warren?
What's that?
Can he get one from Warren?
I don't know. He certainly shouldn't shop at the same place.
Erin?
Again, there's no chutzpah on this stage. Like, give me
word is
something.
chutzpah here.
Give me something to work with here. There's no energy. There's nothing exciting. Like, they need to put someone on that stage you can get excited about. Who's running to the polls to vote for these people? Nobody. Only people that hate Trump. And again, it's once again all about Donald Trump.
Did you tweet, Mr. Blakeman?
I did Facebook. I didn't tweet, but I have to say I will tweet as soon as this is over because I think Steyer is so creepy.
He is so. I was going to say that, but I'm a girl, and
I ride the subway a lot. Now I'm going to be looking for that guy on the subway.
Listen, I've done it
Martin
before.
Shore skit playing Tom Steyer.
You did say that.
If he were inspiring enough to get an SNL skit.
All right, it's not LSU versus Clemson, but we got to do a little winners and losers
Go Dogs.
here. All right, tiger on tiger. I mean, come on. Let's go around the table. Right, I'll toss it out to the end. Go ahead, Joey. Winners and losers tonight.
I think Joe Biden wins as long as he doesn't lose on a night like tonight.
I think Bloomberg wins on the Democrat side and Trump wins all around.
You know, I think they're all losers because nobody had a breakout moment, and they had to. This is crunch time. We're literally days away from the first caucus, and nobody showed any backbone to separate themselves from the pack.
Wow, that's a lot going on there. Guys, thank you. Erin, Brad, and Johnny Joey Jones. You know him, Triple J. And thank you all for joining me tonight out there in Fox Nation. After all, we love having you here for our super fans. And if you aren't a Fox Nation member, remember, head over to foxnation.com. Sign up. We've got a free trial. Give you a chance to check out all of our great content, exciting content like My Show, Reality Check, and so much more. And it's available anytime, anywhere on your Fox Nation app. Thank you. Have a great night. We'll do it again next debate.